So I think I know Sam very well. We've worked for, well, now 10 years together.
10 plus years, yeah.
10 plus years. But for everybody else here, Sam, do you want to introduce yourself and also introduce AB Mauri?
Yeah, sure. So my name's Sam Eaton. I'm head of IT security for AB Mauri. AB Mauri itself is a global baking ingredients manufacturer. We primarily create ingredient technologies effectively for bread, cake, and other bakery ingredients. For the purposes of vulnerability management, I oversee around 3,600 endpoints across 25 reportable BUs. And those BUs effectively operate independently in a federated business model. So the one commonality across those 25 business units would be the use of the Qualys platform and the use of the Qualys Cloud Agent for endpoint vulnerability management. Yeah, that's great.
Perfect. And how long have you been using Qualys? That might have just given it away.
Yeah, so using Qualys in anger. So I joined the business in 2018. I believe there was, it was in use from 2017, but I joined in February 2018, at which point we started using Qualys for reporting vulnerability management in anger. Yeah.
And the patch management element of it? Patch
management's far more recent. So we have done smaller trials in the past, but 3 major pilot deployments started October time last year across 3 business units.
And how has it been for the last few months?
Yeah, if I'm being very honest, the patch management module and service itself, the feedback has been overwhelmingly positive. So the 3 business units we chose just to perform pilots for patch management were very strategically chosen. They'd been 3 BUs that have typically struggled to meet the reporting requirements or targets we'd set out, which are quite aggressive, particularly in comparison to the other 22 business units. That's for a variety of reasons. I'd say the main one being largely size and complexity of particular environments. One of those 3 BU pilots is our largest BU by endpoint count. And then the other one is typically within AB Mauri, our operations teams who are responsible for patching run very lean. So the level of automation that the patch management could provide was really quite powerful. So what we did with the help of Kevin was try and set up patch management in the most efficient way possible. So we effectively, for client patching, created a single job which will patch anything Windows, Microsoft, or third-party related, minus a couple of vendors due to compatibility issues, within 4 days of publication. So that massively reduced the risk quite significantly, almost immediately. Certainly after the first 48 hours, we saw an immediate drop in the metrics we were using at the time and subsequently true risk as well.
I think we actually have...
Yeah, it's probably good to show you.
Let's see. Oh, no, too much. There we go. So do you want to explain this one?
Yeah, so effectively this is one job. What we wanted to achieve was that the automation benefits and efficiencies of patching with Qualys patch management and taking that time away. So we had, for our largest business unit by endpoint count, there's practically 2 people in the infrastructure team, and part of their responsibility was patching. So they're spending a significant portion of their time patching, and unsuccessfully according to the targets we'd set out. So what this, with the help of Kevin, we set up this particular query. So effectively, this will patch anything Microsoft that's been published 4 days ago. That's not in preview, so it's a public update that will be deployed after 4 days. And the only exclusions we've got, so this includes all third-party applications that Qualys can patch as well, with the exception of Java and Firefox due to some application dependencies we have in the business unit. So I can't understate how powerful and transformative that kind of approach is to our patching. If that single job is effectively saving our local IT teams tens of hours per month on patching. As you see, it repeats daily as well. So, as mentioned in the previous presentation, these clients just need to check in. They'll receive those patches provided they're online.
And just to reiterate to one of Aaron's point earlier, I know we've been doing this since September. Have you had any issues?
Yeah, no, pleased to say, obviously that's quite an aggressive approach, and it can be quite contentious in how long the lead time should be with patching. But there's been zero business impact across the 3 business units so far, and the business units all use this same query for client patching. Yeah.
And how do you measure? So you've set up the jobs; they're now running. So how do you measure risk, vulnerability management within AB Mauri and then in the wider ABF group as well?
Yeah. So probably worth going back to talk about our journey on that. So since 2018. When I joined the business, initially we used our primary vulnerability management metric was VPD, so vulnerability per device, which is effectively an average number of high severity vulnerabilities across all of our assets. When I joined the business, I think average VPD count across all endpoints was between 40 and 50. So quite a bad place to be and to inherit when I joined the business. So the immediate target was reducing VPD count. So within 24 months, effectively, our average VPD had reduced to between 0 and 2 for servers and 0 and 4 for clients across all of our 25 business units. So a massive improvement. However, obviously, using VPD as a primary metric, it can mask critical assets, for example. So if you had a VPD of 2, you could have an internet-facing server in that pool of assets that has really severe critical vulnerabilities that you want to remediate. And the BU is reporting green, so for the purposes of reporting to a risk owner in your business, they think everything's okay. So at that point, my advice to the audience would be, if you're using VPD as a metric, or certainly as a primary metric, once you get to a level that you're comfortable with within your business risk appetite, and you can maintain that, it's not really useful as a primary metric anymore. So in 2021, we pivoted to a new internal metric that was created by our parent group, Associated British Foods. And that was effectively a grading metric between A plus and F being really bad, A plus being where we want to be. And that allowed us to take a step forward to increase the scope of the vulnerabilities we were looking at. So VPD only looked at severity 4 and 5. The protection score metric that we used included 2, 3, 4, and 5, and would look at the volume of those particular vulnerabilities in order to create that grading and produce a prioritized roadmap. Now, that allowed us to reduce our risk further, and it was a natural evolution of our patching approach. But, it came with some significant drawbacks. So, we were taking API data out of Qualys. So the data we were previously looking at in Qualys was being taken out of Qualys, run through Python scripting to produce these Excel reports that get emailed out to our users on a weekly or daily basis via an Excel report. So you've immediately got that disconnect, and then you've got an additional overhead with your local operational teams because they're having to interpret these Excel reports and then validate that information in Qualys. A good step forward from a risk perspective, but it didn't really help the teams from a time intensity perspective. Now, more recently, and hopefully something we can show shortly, is we've pivoted to the Qualys True Risk Score. This is something the ABF group, our parent group, are doing, as well as across the whole AB Mauri business. And True Risk, it brings everything back into Qualys effectively. So our operation teams have full visibility of their vulnerabilities, real-time risk via the True Risk metric. And also the absolutely most important thing is it introduces criticality into our risk picture, which is something VPD doesn't do, and to a certain extent the protection score metric did, but True Risk has allowed us to do that using our existing tagging structure. So we've applied certain criticalities to client servers and high-risk servers for internet-facing, etc. And that means that the True Risk figure we're viewing, both at an operational level, but also senior management risk owner level, we can be very confident that that's a very accurate view of our overall endpoint posture.
Yes. That's pretty good. And well, I think we've got some of the results of how the things went down, and this one's on the VPD scale. It is over there as well, if you want.
Yeah, probably is. But so ultimately we turn at the cliff. So obviously with that client patching job, and it is primarily client patching jobs we're focusing on at the moment. You see in our AB Mauri Hispano business, which is the business I refer to with the highest number of endpoints, and had typically struggled. You see in the middle of that graph there, we saw an immediate cliff in effect. After the first 2 months, we effectively halved our True Risk, and certainly our VPD score, which we're still using as a supplementary metric. So a massively significant reduction in risk. But again, I can't stress that if you're running lean teams and your operational teams are doing the patching as well as other tasks within IT infrastructure, the automation benefits that this brings is pretty massive. And we have, just to mention, so the primary focus of these pilots has been client patching, but our Hispano business have actually started using similar jobs for server patching as well. And obviously, a little bit more tentative with servers because of the level of impact that it has potential for. But yeah, we've seen, again, zero impact in server patching so far as well.
That's perfect. And I think the final slide actually shows it from a true risk and mean time to remediate point of view as well. Do you want to go through this and just show?
Yeah, so I think these scores are taken from today, right? It's pretty much live data. So you see, this was a business unit that was struggling before. When we look at the VPD metric, there'd be up at 10, which is, we use RAG status reporting within our governance in the red zone pretty consistently. And now you can see Hispanic from a true risk perspective in a really good place. So we split reporting at a business unit level, so that's all the endpoints in the BU, servers and clients. And then we split out the client and server scores as well. And then there's been a huge improvement in client mean time to remediate, down to 7 days. So not quite at the 5-day NCFC target, but very close. I think, prior to deploying these jobs, I think we're looking at about 40 days for clients, which is pretty typical if you're using traditional patching methods. So it's been a really stark improvement in pretty much all elements of this.
And in terms of getting IT to actually do this, and obviously you work in the centre as a security, but at the end of the day, the infrastructure teams are responsible. How did you manage to get them to say, yeah, let's just go patch everything every day?
Yeah, I mean, it's in their interest ultimately. From an operational perspective, the local teams kind of snap my hand off at this functionality. So they're, I'm not responsible for patching. I'm responsible for reporting risk at a group level. But the local IT teams are responsible for managing this risk. And if they're able to automate this, and again, because they run so lean in these local teams, there was no real need to convince the teams in order to take the service on. And obviously, we worked quite closely with the local teams in order to allay any fears they might have had around patching, particularly on a short publish date, like 4 days. From my global role perspective, there's a couple of things we can do. So we obviously have a global cybersecurity strategy, of which we have a term called doing the basics brilliantly, and patching very much falls into that foundational pillar. So patching is something we all have in our control to do really well. So we make sure our KPIs and particularly our true risk targets are very aggressive but achievable. And obviously, by onboarding patch management, the BUs are able to achieve those targets in an easier way. So just for context, for Mauri, we use RAG status reporting. It's quite powerful at exec level, for example. So we have red, amber, green thresholds, and we've actually introduced, due to the strength of our patching off the back of these BUs, an outstanding measure, which is a blue status, if you like, which is anything 150 and below. And I think the majority of our BUs are on the cusp of achieving that metric, which is, I'm really proud of what the local teams have been able to achieve. It's been really good.
I guess just one final question in terms of, if you were to do it again, what would we do different?
Yeah, from a journey perspective, I think, like I said, going back to 2018, with VPDs where they were, I think it can be quite overwhelming, and I think you need to, you be pragmatic in your approach. I think VPDs as a primary metric at that time was, as I say, quite pragmatic and the right thing to do. And then you just naturally evolve over time as you improve. Don't stand still. Keep trying to mature your approach. And I think now we've hit that point where we're maturing with the automation that patch management brings. So, my intention based on the pilots, there's been no impact. For client patching, certainly would be to roll out similar client patching jobs across all 25 business units within the organisation.
That's brilliant. And are you happy? Yeah, sorry, there's an annoying fly here.
Guest appearance.
Are you happy to take some questions from the audience?
Absolutely, yeah.
So if you've got any questions for Sam, put your hand up, and then Paul will bring you a microphone.
So I knew Mantis would have a question.
Yeah, I was about to say Mantis, straight in there.
1, 2, and 2. So full disclosure, I was working with Sam and Kevin on this a few years ago. But anyways, obviously, this is quite mature now. How close are you, Sam, to having like a zero-touch patching process, which you don't need to go and check every day and see if there's anything to follow up? Would you say you're quite close to zero-touch patching?
I think whether we're close to that's a good question. I think we have the technology and the power to do that. I think the primary focus at the moment, due to the impacts on servers, would be to focus on zero-touch client patching, and achieving that to the best of our ability. So I think we've seen some metrics here. I think Qualys can achieve between 90 and 95% of that. And there is actually functionality within Qualys. If you can't make those calls public repositories to install third-party patches. You can put packages, custom scripts on local or cloud file shares and deploy using Qualys patch management as well. So that's one of the benefits as well. I mean, we're using multiple tools at the moment. Like I say, all of these 25 business units effectively run independently in this model. So we're using Intune, SCCM, patch management. Some of the smaller offices are manual. So if you kind of combine all that patching under one solution, it allows us to consolidate the knowledge we have in the business as well and create champions, etc., that can support the rest of our regions. There's other benefits there as well.
Any other questions for Sam? Can't see any other. Oh, no, one over here, Paul. Get your step count on. Come on. Trying to find a shortcut through.
I'm wondering, did you have to increase headcount of your security people to deliver this, or did you give this privilege to the already traditional patching?
Yeah, it's quite the opposite actually. So yeah, like I said, we run very lean, and in an ideal world we would have a more headcount. We don't have people dedicated to vulnerability management, so we've had to work smarter in effect. And like I say, IT security is just growing and growing and growing. Responsibilities, adding and adding all the time on these. Some business units just have 1 or 2 people responsible for IT infrastructure, and they've taken on cybersecurity to some respects. So like I say, previously spending tens of hours, and with this kind of solution, effectively our Hispano IT infrastructure manager is now monitoring a job. He's not, managing pilots, packaging, and deploying these client patching jobs, which tens of hours a month. This is now, it's in place and it's monitoring.
So it's quite a passive role rather than an active role, and
for client,
not headcount heavy.
For client patching, absolutely. I should have really said. I mean, the initial technical onboarding of this, the 30-minute Teams call with Kevin, the local team. Within that 30-minute Teams call, we're applying the licenses, the patch management licenses to all endpoints via our existing tagging. We've set up the client patching job, including automated reboots and deferral policies, etc. All within this one job that we showed previously. And effectively, once you hit enable, it's just a case of monitoring that going forward. So it's effectively passive. Obviously, you have to monitor. I mean, clients need to be online for it to receive patches, but it's the same as any other patching solution. So quite passive.
I was wondering, how did you convince your staff to let go of traditional tools like SCCM? Did you have to do lots of talking to them to start using patch management?
Yeah, ultimately, it wasn't too hard to convince them because, like I say, just due to the lean teams basically in these local BUs. So for 3 BUs we chose, they were struggling using traditional tools. So they used SCCM, config manager, etc. to deploy. One of our BUs was patching manually, for example, for a much lower number of endpoints. So it's the automation that this has been able to provide through this one query that was attractive to the business unit's operational teams. So like I say, I mean, if you have dedicated vulnerability teams and they're very hands-on, they go to more passive, then perhaps that's a different conversation. But for our business, the automation and the efficiencies that come with that are very, very powerful.
Any further questions for Sam?
I knew it.
I
knew
okay.
it.
Andy. It's not a question. Oh, okay. Okay. So just Andy, I'll let you introduce yourself as well. You're welcome.
Hi, my name's Andy Kearns. I work for the parent company of AB Mauri. I was just going to follow up on what was said actually about SCCM. I'm one of those people. SCCM. And I can honestly say I'm not being paid for this. Yeah, go to Qualys. A lot better for patch management. SCCM has its benefits, but yeah, Qualys has helped us a lot, and we're actually implementing this as well from ABF. So yeah. That was it. Thank you.
Thank you. And it took a few years to convince Andy to let go of SCCM, just to let you know. It took a few years there. Any other questions there for Sam? Perfect. If not, thank you very much, Sam.
Thank you. Cheers.
Thank you.